We will now call this meeting to order, and I'm going to ask everyone to turn off electronic devices to avoid any technical interference with the microphones and taping of this meeting. A Spanish call-in line for the community to hear the meeting interpreted live has been established. The number is 508-924-5155. Again, the number is 508-924-5155. Closed captioning is available through live YouTube streaming for the deaf and hard of hearing community. Finally, for those who are not able to observe now, this meeting is being recorded and can be accessed for later viewing via the Prince George's County Public Schools YouTube channel. We will now have our prayer and pledge of allegiance by Board Member Adam Stafford. Please lead us in prayer and the allegiance. Ms. Stafford.
O God, we pray, to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance, steer us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. Amen.
Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now have the roll call. Ms. Berkeley.
Here.
Ms. Boozer-Strother?
Here.
Mr. Savant-Ruiz?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Mrs. Mickens-Murray? Here. Mr. Montero?
Here.
Mr. Murray? Mrs. Queen? Present. Mr. Thomas?
Present.
Mr. Valentine? Here. Mrs. Williams?
Present.
Dr. Miller?
Here. Thank you. We have a quorum. Now we will move to the adoption of the agenda for December 9th, 2021. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda? It has been moved and second to adopt the agenda for December 9th, 2021. Is there any discussion? No discussion, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Now we will move to the approval of board meeting minutes for the November 18th, 2021 board meeting. May I have a motion? It has been moved.
Second.
It has been moved and second to approve the board meeting minutes for November 18th, 2021. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none. The motion carries to approve the board meeting minutes for November 18th. Now we will move to the news break, vaccine clinics. Who's presenting that video?
Mill Elementary School in Laurel, one of 52 sites serving as vaccination centers for our children and their parents. From now until the end of December, most days between 3 and 8 o'clock, appointments are recommended, or you can walk in. Make sure you come. Get your child vaccinated, get yourself vaccinated, and let's put this pandemic in the rear view mirror. You were pretty brave there. You glad it's over?
Yes.
Yeah. While the COVID vaccine shots for children ages 5 to 11 are now available and free of charge, they aren't always free of anxiety.
Stay still, relax. It's all done.
But while the sight and the pinch of needles is giving some youngsters pause, most of them, often bolstered by little friends they brought along, showed a courage and a resolve that made their parents proud. Did it hurt at all?
No.
So how do you feel now?
Good.
Do you feel protected?
Yeah.
Can I ask you, did you get your shot?
Yes, I got my booster shot.
Terrific, okay.
Yes.
So how do you feel now about Natasha going to school now that she's been vaccinated?
More safe, but still, you always have that little doubt, but safer because you gotta do it because everyone else is doing it. If not, you're gonna be out of the game.
Was it okay? Did it hurt?
No. It just felt like somebody was pushing me to my bed.
Ah, I like that. Did yours hurt?
It felt like somebody was pinching me.
That wasn't too bad. And how about you? How did you feel after that shot?
I didn't really feel anything.
Nothing. Well, let's hope it does its job, right? So you guys can be safe in school now and not have to wear. Maybe someday we can get rid of these masks, huh?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
I just want to see everybody's faces.
You want to see everybody what?
Everybody's faces.
For some of the children getting the shot, it was their first time in a school building since the pandemic began.
I know the virtual students are eager to come back, and now this is the first step for them to come back.
First and second doses of the Pfizer vaccine, the only one currently approved by the FDA for children ages 5 to 11, will be available after school hours Monday through Friday through mid-December. A list of specific schools, dates, and times is available at mypgc.us/COVID-vaccine. The clinics, run by the Prince George's County Health Department, are, as we've just seen, not just for 5 to 11-year-olds, older youngsters and adults, including teachers like Miss Nelson, can roll up their sleeves at the same locations. A perfect way to set a good example.
I got my booster. I'm boosted.
Are you feeling boosted?
I'm feeling boosted. Ready for the holiday season.
So, the message is loud and clear. Join the kids and get the jab. This is Dave Zarin reporting.
Thank you. And let's join the kids and encourage others who have not been vaccinated or those who need to get the booster. Let's encourage them. Thank you. Now we will have my report. Colleagues, so many wonderful things have been happening in Prince George's County Schools, too many to talk about, but I wanted to highlight that and extend personal congratulations to the Frederick Douglass High School football team for winning the Maryland 2A state championship last Friday. Yay! Hey. Huh? Oh, and it's in District 9. In recognition of the Computer Science Week, I attended a wonderful virtual hour of code kickoff celebration with our staff and students. And it was, it just, as an educator, it really touched my heart because the students were really enthusiastic and the staff members were just, they were into it as well. It was a very enlightening and motivating experience. Thank you to the Prince George's Public Schools team who pulled this together and who are working so diligently with and for our students. Now we will have a moment of silence. Colleagues, at this time, I ask that you all join me in honoring the memory of the following Prince George's County Public Schools students, staff, and family members with a moment of silence. First, for Ms. Sandra Coleman, Food Services Assistant at Rosaryville Elementary School. Mrs. Brenda Rice, Food Services Assistant at Arrowhead Elementary School. Noah D. Lawrence Jr., father of Dr. Tracy Jones, Supervisor, School Health Office. Janice E. Fleming Jr., stepfather of Beatrice Womack, principal at Robert Goddard Montessori School, K-8 Academy. Please continue to keep these families in your thoughts and prayers, and keep families that are going through any kind of challenges, especially during this season of Advent and Christmas and New Year's. Thank you. Now we will have board member service acknowledgements. Colleagues, I would like to take a few moments to announce the resignation of our longstanding colleague, Edward Burrows III. Mr. Burrows officially resigned this week after 13 years of service on the Board of Education. Mr. Burrows began his service as a student member and was elected by the constituents of District 8 immediately following his student service. During his tenure on the board, Mr. Burrows has played a role in many changes we see in our school system today. On behalf of the Board of Education, I would like to thank him for his service and wish him well in his future endeavors. We have a plaque that Mr. Burrows had been invited to come tonight. However, it was shared with me that he's feeling under the weather, but we have a beautiful plaque, and can you open that for me? And I'll be glad to share it with you, and at some future date, Mr. Burrows can be presented this plaque. Please check our webpage for information about upcoming board meetings, and the next public board meeting will be held on the next public meeting is January. We have December. Well, we have three more meetings in December, and the first one is Monday, December 13th, the Academic Achievement Committee, Tuesday, December 14th, the Policy and Governance Committee, and Wednesday, December 15th, at 3:30, the Climate Change Action Plan Focus Group. Hold it up for everybody to see. That is the plaque that will be presented to Mr. Burrows. Thank you. Now we will move to the report of the Chief Executive Officer. Dr. Goldson, please present your report.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. I, too, would like to congratulate the Frederick Douglass High School football team and Coach Monty Sutton for winning the state championship title. The Eagles truly soared last Friday, claiming the 2A victory over Milford Mill Academy with a score of 29-14. This is the second school system's state championship award, because we also got one from Northwestern High School, who won the 4A soccer title last month. So congratulations to our two state championship teams. I also want to congratulate Dr. Henry A. Wise Junior High School's football team on their great season. They concluded the season with a 12-1 record. We are Prince George's County proud of all of our scholar athletes. Earlier this week, I joined County Executive Angela Alsobrooks during the telephone town hall on COVID-19 vaccine. School-based clinics, as you saw on our news break, continue to remain open across the county. Vaccination is the best protection against COVID-19, so please don't miss your shot. Also this week, I had the pleasure to join our very own Global Teacher Prize winner, Kashia Thorpe, who's an English teacher at the International High School at Langley Park, as she was honored on the floor of the Maryland State Senate with a proclamation. Thank you to Senator Malcolm Augustine and Senator President Bill Ferguson for hosting Ms. Thorpe and her daughter, and for celebrating excellence in teaching. The specialty program's application deadline has been extended to Friday, January 7th. for the International Baccalaureate Program, Academy of Health Sciences, and Teacher Prep at Prince George's Community College, Career and Technical Education Programs, P-TECH, and 3D Scholars. The deadline to apply to other high school specialty programs and 6th through 8th grade Creative and Performing Arts Program is tomorrow, Friday, December 10th. As a reminder, schools and offices will be closed for the winter break from Friday, December 24th through Friday, December 31st. Schools will dismiss 3 hours early on Thursday, December 23rd. Thank you, and this concludes my report.
Thank you. Should I take this off or keep it on? Up to me. Okay, great. We have the PowerPoint. Okay. Before we get started, I wanted to ask, there's quite a bit of information that I have to go over. And what I'd like is if there are questions, that those questions be written down and sent to the panel through the board chair, and we will answer them in writing as expeditiously as possible.
Mr. Morton, while you're waiting, for the sake of the public, would you just give a brief summary of what the ethics panel's role is?
That's all in here. Great. All right, so we'll start out by saying good evening. I'd like to thank the school board for the opportunity to appear and deliver the Board of Education ethics panel report. Next slide. That's not the next slide. That's not the PowerPoint that I gave you guys. That's not correct. Aisha, did you find the
Madam Chair, if I may provide a solution, perhaps we could move forward with the agenda and allow board members to review this report, since we have it, or it can be sent by board staff so that we can review it and submit any questions, as Mr. Morton suggested, to the ethics panel if there are issues.
The report's an oral report. The slides are just to provide something to talk to.
And is to provide the public with information relative to what this board's duties and responsibilities are and its relationship to the Board of Education. So this is a public hearing, and the public does have a right to hear the report. You can proceed, Mr. Morton.
Well,
yes, if you have a report.
Aisha, did you get?
Okay, please.
So,
Mr. Morton, you want to take a few minutes?
yeah,
and you can come back.
Take a few minutes, maybe
Thank
you can
you.
go on with the agenda a little bit and then come back to me. Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct, but that's not what's up there. It was actually a PowerPoint. It looks like, that looks like a
Dr.
PDF.
Golson?
Yeah, there you go. Open with, at the top of the page.
Two people aren't going to.
Open with. Okay. And then just hit the, that looks right. Which one? Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. All right. So continuing on. Answer the question. The state of Maryland enacted a public ethics law in 1957, which was amended over the years as recently as 2020. The purpose of the law was to guarantee that the people have a right to be assured that the impartiality and independent judgment of public officials and employees will be maintained. State law states that people's confidence and trust are eroded when the conduct of state business is subject to improper influence or even the appearance of improper influence. As we all know too well, today people trust in public institutions is very low, and it has been severely eroded. Every local government, including boards of education, are required by state law to enact ethics policies that were at least as robust as those adopted by the state. These policies must include rules governing conflict of interest, disclosure by public officials of financial interests, regulation of lobbying activities, and the creation of an entity to monitor and respond to ethics complaints and to hold public officials accountable. Section 5-506 of the state ethics law states, an official or employee may not intentionally use the prestige of office or public position for that official's or employee's private gain or that of another, or to influence the award of a state or local contract to a specific person. An official may not initiate the solicitation for a person to retain the compensated services of a particular regulated lobbyist or lobbying firm. Board Policy 107 was adopted in 2012 and applies to board members, candidates to be members of the board, state officials, and employees. The purpose of this policy is to guard against improper influence and to set minimum standards for the conduct of school system business. This is not something dreamed up in somebody's basement. This was carefully and deliberately thought through and implemented in 2012, nearly a decade ago. Policy 0107 created a 5-member ethics panel appointed by the chairman of the school board with the concurrence of other members of the school board. The panel is an advisory body responsible for interpreting this policy and advising persons subject to this policy regarding its application. The panel chair, myself, was appointed in 2015 and reappointed in 2019. The current members include Gregory T. Morton, myself, a retired IT program manager. Trelandra Beckett Jones, a university administrator at UDC. Shonda Fennell Cobbs, a practicing attorney. Rhonda Edwards, a practicing attorney. Patricia Rozier, a practicing attorney and former president of the National Bar Association. And there's our counsel, Mr. Leslie Stillman Esquire, retired school law attorney who was jointly approved by PGCPS, acting general counsel, and former board attorney Roger Thomas. As you can see, we have a panel populated largely by attorneys, but attorneys with diverse legal backgrounds. There are people who know and understand various aspects of the law. The board is populated with professionals who are drawing on their expertise and who care about our students. Our duties and responsibilities are clearly spelled out in Policy 0107. This is not something we make up as we go along. We don't get to decide how we are going to do our job as a body. Whether it is us or another group in these positions, we have a clear roadmap. This is also what the public expects of us, to provide the board members and PGCPS employees with advisory opinions upon request concerning the application of this policy, to investigate sworn complaints filed by any citizen against a board member or employee. If there's a reasonable basis for believing that violation has occurred, issuing proposed findings regarding the complaint with the right to a hearing. If following a hearing, there is evidence of an ethics violation, to offer either the board member or employee the opportunity to offer a settlement or cure consistent with the purposes of the policy. If no settlement is acceptable, to present findings of fact, conclusions of law, and recommendations to the board. If there are insufficient facts upon which to find a violation of policy, to recommend dismissal of the complaint to the Board of Education. Other duties of the ethics panel include to enforce provisions of the policy governing conflicts of interest, including claims that officials are intentionally use the prestige of office or public position for the private gain of that official or the private gain of another, to collect and maintain financial disclosure information submitted by members of the board, candidates to be members of the board, the CEO, members of the executive cabinet, to collect lobbying registration statements from individuals seeking to influence members of the board or PGCPS employees in the performance of their official duties. Ethics panel commitment. We talked about this a lot as a panel. Always do the right thing based on the facts. Every day we talked about our job is to respond, not react to situations. And we held really tight that we should have no engagement with media. Our objective was to never, ever become famous. Let's focus on the word commitment. That's what this is. Commitment to the law, commitment to the public, commitment to the board, not commitment to ourselves. This isn't about us. Look at our record and you will see the balance in the outcomes. You can't say that we were leaning in any direction. We simply call them as we see them. You could say we are fair and balanced. The numbers from the past year speak volumes. The ethics panel issued 4 advisory opinions to members of the board and PGCPS staff. The ethics panel received 15, and I've been around since 2015. This is the busiest year ever. The ethics panel received 15 sworn complaints delivered by PGCS internal audit and often made by citizens through the fraud and abuse hotline. Of those complaints, in one case, the panel found it lacked jurisdiction. It dismissed 7 complaints, and it found merit to the remaining 7 complaints. So now we'll talk about process. And one of the things that we talked about as a panel is that policy accompanied by process is the path to success. Every move we make as a panel is covered by a process. What good is any oversight organization without a process? Good policy is followed by a solid process. Let me take a few minutes to explain our process. When it comes to fielding complaints, every step is measured. Every step is well considered. There are no curves in the road. It's a straightforward process. Once it receives a signed, sworn complaint, the panel first determines whether it has jurisdiction under Policy 107 to pursue the matter. If it has jurisdiction, the panel sends interrogatories and requests for documents to respondents and other potential witnesses. In many cases, interviews were conducted with relevant individuals. The tentative findings issued this past year included an opportunity for respondents to review, to request hearings, and to submit evidence disputing any facts contained in those findings. Due process. I mentioned earlier the presence of several attorneys on our panel. Nobody knows and understands due process like a lawyer. We made doubly sure to allow for thorough due process. There are numerous opportunities to respond to any allegations. Hearings were scheduled in 5 cases in July, yet none of the individuals who were offered the right to participate in those hearings appeared or submitted any evidence. Hearings were offered in an additional 2 cases this past month, but none of those individuals participated. The panel invited each respondent to appear and submit position statements, evidence, and any other exculpatory information. None was provided. Instead, some respondents went to the press to complain about the findings, which were supposed to remain confidential until adopted by the Board of Education. Absent refutation at findings under Policy 0107, the ethics panel is obligated to send proposed findings of fact, conclusions of law, and recommendation to the Board of Education. Cooperation. The key here is cooperation. Cooperation internally among board members and cooperation between board members and everyone who is the subject of inquiry. The key takeaway here is that we can only go by the information we receive. Failure to cooperate does not help you if you are the subject of an inquiry. We can't guess at what we don't know. The need for cooperation is vital to the ethics panel's work. Just like the Board of Education, the ethics panel lacks subpoena power and therefore must rely on the good faith of board members, employees, and others to answer inquiries. This has not always been the case this past year. In the event the panel lacks adequate information due to non-cooperation, it is compelled to issue findings based upon the information it has received. The ethics panel stands by its findings, and unlike anyone on the board that had an adverse finding, is willing to take responsibility for the integrity of the work that was done. Next, I'm going to talk about challenges. We are not naive, and we expect that there will be challenges in what we do. It's a built-in part of the responsibility. There are nuances to deal with, a thin line between interpretations and misinterpretations, conflicting information to sort out. One of the big challenges is misinformation and disinformation. We experienced non-cooperation from some board members and witnesses, at least one of whom went to the press instead of speaking to the panel. Nothing in Policy 0107 anticipated the events of the past year. Many of the panel's findings and recommendations that went to the board did not receive enough votes to be adopted. This prevented the State Board of Education the opportunity to assess the panel's findings. Votes were cast by respondents who, under state law, should have recused themselves since they were affected by the vote. The ethics panel members were accused by some board members and their attorneys of leaking findings to the public and the press. This is absolutely not true. The ethics panel members are all uncompensated volunteers. They have devoted hours to their role as members of the ethics panel. In a move that was in conflict with Policy 0107's confidentiality provisions, in July, we were each individually sued for thousands of dollars by a board member who claimed that the ethics panel leaked tentative findings to third parties in violation of Policy 0107's confidentiality provisions. This week, the plaintiff agreed to dismiss the lawsuit with prejudice, meaning we can't be sued again. Initial findings contain 3 counts. Initial filings contain 3 counts. 1, challenging the ethics panel's selection of counsel. 2, attempting to prevent the panel from turning its findings over to the board. And demanding damages from each panel member under the Public Information Act for leaking confidential findings. And then on July 29th, the complaint added the Board of Education as a defendant. So, on July 26th, Judge John Davey denied a school board member's attempt to prevent the panel from delivering findings to the Board of Education. On July 28th, Judge William Snoddy denied a second attempt to prevent the panel from delivering findings to the Board of Education, which had already been delivered. That school board member's lawyer sought to depose the panel's lawyer and obtain his confidential communications with the panel, but withdrew that request after the panel's lawyer objected in a pleading, questioning the good faith of such a request. This week, the lawsuit, as I said, was dismissed with prejudice. The threat of legal action has become an ongoing challenge. Even without legal merit, the lawsuit was filed without regard to these facts. The board itself would have to indemnify ethics panel members, thus the board will have to pay for the defense costs in any potential verdict. And some ethics panel members have had to disclose on credit applications that they are being sued, which could impact their credit. This will not make it easy to recruit future members for the ethics panel. Challenges, media. We've had to endure talking points from various members, various people. The talking points included ethics panel leaked findings to the public and the press. Never happened. Ethics panel reports are riddled with errors. Ethics panel actions are politically motivated. Ethics panel ignored thousands of documents from school board members. Ethics panel counsel was appointed illegally. Misuse of information is an unwelcome challenge. People are quick to run to the press with unsubstantiated allegations, with hyped information, with false information, with documents that do not tell the whole story, with personal attacks. The board member and their lawyers included a candidate for Congress who have told the press and the public that the ethics panel's decisions are error-ridden and politically motivated. During an initial conference call with Glenn Ivey, who represented several school board members, the ethics panel chair, and the ethics panel counsel, Glenn Ivey, without substantiating facts, accused the ethics panel of leaking panel findings. Glenn also made it clear that his plan was to prosecute the ethics panel by litigating the matter in the press.
Point of order, can Mr. Morton speak about correspondences that happen between lawyers around issues of this sensitivity? I mean, I understand.
Excuse me, Board Member Ahmed, you're out of order.
This is a point of
You are not
order.
being recognized.
This is a point of order. I cannot believe that we're in a situation where one lawyer is talking about a correspondence that he had with another lawyer.
You are out of order, Board Member.
I believe that Mr. Morton is out of order, and
No,
I'm
he's
just.
not. He's giving his report.
Okay.
Whether you agree with what is being said or disagree, he has the floor, and he is providing information. And he also stated at the beginning of his presentation that if there are any questions or concerns, please write them and submit
I
them
object to
the
that
chair.
request,
You are
Madam
out
Chair.
of order.
I object to that
Please.
request, but.
I'm sorry, I have to agree with Mr. Mayor. He doesn't get to tell us what we can do. If we have questions, if he's going to give this report, he's going to answer us. We are the board. He doesn't tell us that, write it to him, okay? So I do disagree with that. If he's here, he's giving us report. If we have any questions as a board while he is here, he is required to answer our questions. Otherwise, he shouldn't be here. That's my only concern.
She interrupted.
I understand that. It's not about that.
We are being rude to him. If you disagree, if you choose to ask him
I
questions.
will at the end, but that's the only part.
There's a procedure, and it is not to be impolite and rude.
Yeah, I was waiting till the end for the questions, folks, but I do
Madam
have
Chair,
questions at the end.
That's just it.
Mine was a point of order. Procedurally, I'm able to interrupt and provide a point of order, and I wanted to provide a point of order specifically around Mr. Morton referring to two legal counsels conveying information to each other about cases that have not been made public. And that is the point of order that I wanted to raise, because that is of a concern. And so Mr. Morton can continue with whatever he would like to present, but it's this piece, and there were some other pieces before, but this is an intense piece that I just wanted to create a point of order over. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ahmed, Board Member Ahmed. Mr. Morton, would you please continue?
Okay, thank you. The ethics panel has remained neutral and independent despite these public insults. The ethics panel has never leaked any of their work product, yet are being wrongly accused of doing so by board members and their lawyers. The ethics panel has learned from media reports that a complaint was made against the panel to the Education Inspector General, a position created under the recently enacted current legislation in order to root out waste, fraud, and abuse. We have since learned that the Inspector General is not faulting the ethics panel, but is very interested in the allegations of misconduct and conflicts of interest uncovered by the panel. The members of the ethics panel are discouraged by the lack of cooperation and contempt displayed by some board members. The ethics panel is a hard-working group of volunteers who are merely trying to do the right thing. The public cannot retain confidence in elected officials who refuse to be accountable and who are not even willing to defend their actions through proper hearings as provided under Policy 0107, choosing instead to go to the press with false allegations against panel members. To be effective and have public trust, we must take some bold steps. We need to educate. Enhanced training is needed for members of the school board regarding proper ethical conduct in compliance with Policy 0107. Policy 0107 needs updating, including a more robust method for allowing the panel to acquire necessary information to make meaningful recommendations to the Board of Education. Clarify recusal requirements for board members seeking to vote on ethics panel recommendations that involve them. Recognition of the independence, transparency, and impartiality of the ethics panel. Respect and appreciate the work of the ethics panel. Codify the need for approval by the entire board before individuals initiate litigation against members of the ethics panel. If there are challenges to the panel's tentative findings, participate in hearings rather than press releases. Respondents must be committed to participate in due process hearings rather than litigation through the press. The consequences of action and inaction when it comes to this panel are enormous. We don't gain anything from looking skeptical as if there is no fallout from poor decisions and indecision. The consequences are not just to the board, but to the taxpayers and especially our parents, students, and PGCPS employees. The consequences belong to the entire community. What do they say across the DMV when they read or hear about Prince George's County's attack on its own Board of Education's ethics panel? The State Board of Education recently expressed serious concerns over the divisive actions within the board that have been ongoing, leading to a dysfunctional board, an outcome that Prince George's County school system can ill afford. Demonstrated contempt for a panel created by the school board with the goal of addressing and preventing conflicts of interest and corruption will further erode public confidence in the board's ability to act in the best interest of the children of Prince George's County and their families. In response, recently a task force was created with the goal of recommending major changes to the governance structure of the Board of Education of Prince George's County. That task force cannot help but be influenced by the contempt for the work of the ethics panel displayed by some board members. Legislation that none of us wants to see may be enacted if the board does not show the necessary respect for ethical norms. At this point, I'm about to wrap up. I wanted to kind of take a moment of personal privilege here and talk about my family and my relationship with PGCF, which goes back 20 years when my kids finished the University of Maryland Center for Young Children over 20 years ago. And one of the things that I remember very distinctly is that a teacher there was absolutely astounded that we would ever consider sending our child to the Prince George's County public school system. My wife and I didn't agree. We decided to have confidence in our PGCPS community school. Our first principal at Lake Arb Elementary was Miss Helen Cole, where she created a wonderful experience, elementary school experience for our children. Even with the challenges in an all-urban school system, faces, that kind of positive experience remained consistent throughout our public school system journey. Finding educators whose priority was the success of our children was never a problem. At Charles Herbert Flowers High School, educators like Gorman Brown and Eric Summers, who I just learned today is getting ready to retire, make a difference and continue to make a difference. A fond memory of my child's high school experience was at a prom send-off that we had at our house. Gorman Brown stopped by out of his pride for the accomplishments of the 16 students from his school participating in the send-off. He informed us that the 16 had achieved offers for over $1 million in scholarships to college. That's incredible. Recently in the news, we were informed that Keisha Thorpe was awarded the 2021 Global Teacher Prize in Paris, France, in honor of the dedication she has to her students. What do these people I've talked about have in common? They care about our kids. My son this week, PGCPS graduate, completed his undergraduate degree at Howard University in economics and has been offered a full ride scholarship to UMD's journalism school. I'm so proud. Thank you to the educators of Prince George's County. I'd like to say thank you to Dr. Golson for the things that she's doing to keep that going. Last slide. Ethics panel charge to the community. Wise counsel is about leveraging the power of experience. When it comes to ethics and integrity, we should never compromise on the need to always be doing the right thing. If our answer is to make do when it comes to ethics and integrity, then we're failing our children. If we don't expect the best from our leaders, how can we ask our children for their best? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morton. Mr. Morton, even though you have asked the board members to submit any questions or concerns in writing, I will have to give my colleagues an opportunity to ask questions, and it is up to you how you respond. So with that, I saw Board Member Queen.
Thank you so very much, Madam Chair. My question is not going to be that hard. Hopefully, you'll be able to respond. One of the things is, I didn't really see it in the report, but I remember hearing you as I was listening you stated, and thank you for your service also. I remember that you stated that if ethic charge is brought against someone, then they shouldn't be allowed to, they should recuse themselves from that. But my question to you is, when it does not pertain to that person, they also should be able to be allowed to vote on it also. So I'm just wondering, which situations is it when they are able to recuse and they are able not? Because what happened even with this report, I wasn't given the option, and so I'm gonna be honest with you. And so my problem is, I felt that it was something that I should have been able to vote on. And I wasn't given that option to vote on one part of it when it didn't affect me. So I felt that things were done and wrong. So I'm just wanting guidance, since you are the ethic panel, and what part should that have been done?
I think the only way that I can answer that at this point is to say that there's 107 is what guided us, and 107 should guide you guys. You guys, for a long period of time, in the midst of some of the things that have gone on this year, were without an attorney. My suggestion is talk to your attorney and see what his recommendation is in that particular situation. He can help you figure it out.
Thanks for your suggestion, but I'm one of the people, I'm not going to waste the school system money on an attorney. My attorney sits high and look low. So I'm not going to do that. But thank you so very much.
Good.
Board Member Ahmed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Morton, you've been on the ethics panel for 6 years, as you showed us, since 2015. Has the ethics panel ever, during your tenure, presented an annual report to the board?
Yes.
When is that?
2018, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was 2018.
2018? I don't see record of that, and I don't recall that. I've been on the board since 2016.
You were there and you asked a question.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for reminding me.
Right.
But let's be clear, this is not something that you do every single year as an ethics panel. And the way that I saw this report and how you've shared it, it was an attempt to defend the ethics panel, and the chair provided you a platform to do so. And that's okay. This is what it is. This is where we're at. But this is not an annual report. This is a 30-minute public comment defense of your actions. I shouldn't say your actions, I should say the actions of the ethics panel. And so I want to just make that very clear for the public that this is what has just occurred. And I will say, I'm sorry, this is my floor.
I understand, but are you asking a question?
I'm sorry, I'm on a timer right now.
Are you asking a question?
I am getting there, Mr. Morton. Mr. Morton, I'm getting, can I reclaim
No, sir,
my
she is
time,
not
please?
asking a question.
Can I please reclaim my time? Thank you so, my time is still running. I need to reclaim that time. Thank you so much. You had said that the ethics panel dismissed 7 complaints. Are you aware that the board policy says that only the board can dismiss complaints?
We had 7 findings with a recommendation for dismissal.
Okay. Because that is not what is listed there. It says that there are 7 dismissed complaints in your chart. And so I would like to see those complaints that have been recommended, or as you're saying, recommended for dismissal, because that is something that is ultimately the responsibility and the vote of the board.
All those have been conveyed to the board through the board chair.
Oh, Madam Board Chair, if you could please send those over to the members of the board, that would be greatly appreciated. I also noted that you said that you're guided, or I say you, when I say you, I mean the ethics panel. Please excuse me as I interchange the two. The ethics panel is guided by policy 0107. Since and if that is the case, why has the ethics panel taken positions on interpretation of policies outside of 0107? For example, policy 0108. Okay, if there's no response to that, I would like to make it known that the ethics panel seems to be applying policies outside of policy 0107 to other policies as well.
Thank you,
Mr. Morton.
If a policy touches ethics, then we can look at it and decide whether we have any specific jurisdiction.
Okay, thank you for that response. I will also note for the just colleagues in general that the ethics policy is under review of the policy committee, and that is because amendments to the policy that were made in 2017 were not submitted to the State Ethics Commission for approval as required by state law. And so that policy is currently under review right now. And so I just wanted to make that clear to all of my colleagues that this is a policy that is under review. I did also just wanted to make it clear that this has been a very shocking type of situation for me. We were presented with this presentation that Mr. Morton has just shared minutes before the board meeting. The press was still hot. My papers were still hot when we received this report from Mr. Morton. And I thank the chair for allowing us the opportunity to be able to answer and ask these questions, because if this is being presented in public, it is the right of every single board member here to question, ask, and challenge what it is that you're putting in front of us. Thank you.
Any other questions? Board member Sheila Adams Stafford. Turn your mic.
Can you hear me? Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so my first question here, so, you mentioned that it's the job of the ethics panel to maintain the confidentiality of the ethics report until the vote approves them for public release. Is that true? Is that what you stated?
That's correct.
Okay. Were you aware that the confidential ethics panel reports were illegally leaked and sent to media outlets, and local politicians received them in unmarked envelopes earlier this year? Were you aware of that?
Let me comment on that.
I just want to know, yes or no, were you aware of that? Well, I'm just asking, were you aware?
I would like to respond to you.
I'm just asking, because I only have limited time.
Well, I understand that.
You had 30 minutes, and we just found out about your report 15 minutes ago.
My response to you is that tentative findings were provided to respondents on the report. Those tentative findings, once they left the ethics panel, I didn't have any control over what any board member did with their tentative findings.
Okay, let's talk about that.
And so, if they were leaked, how they were leaked, where they were leaked, I don't know where they came from, I don't know who did it, but the ethics panel did not.
Okay, I was just asking if you were aware that they were
I
they were
heard-
placed.
I heard
Hold on one
rumors-
second, I listened
I
to you.
heard rumors
Now,
to that
see,
effect.
he's interrupting me. This is very unprofessional. Here we go. Do you think that it was a good idea for you to deliver paper copies of those highly confidential documents to unlocked mailboxes in the board office, which really anyone could access without their permission, as opposed to sending those confidential reports maybe via certified mail or maybe a password-protected email?
The answer to that is that everything was marked confidential, number one. And number two, from the experience from sending the first report to board members and the fact that we were then accused of leaking, everything that happened after that, we learned from that experience, and everything was sent certified mail and hard copy. Nobody has any electronic copies of anything from the ethics panel at this point.
Get that? Yes, there were, that's, okay. If the panel, it says that, okay, I just want to be clear that it's within your charge and through Maryland state law to maintain the confidentiality of those reports.
It's my job to do.
I'm sorry, please stop interrupting me. I'm
It's
sorry.
my job to do that,
You cannot
and it's the
interrupt.
job of
Yes,
every
sir.
board member to
Mr.
do
Chair, are
that
you
as
going
well.
to stop him from interrupting us? I'm trying to, but every time I speak, he's starting to speak over me. Well, can you advise him to not do that? Okay. Were you aware of a recent Washington Post article titled Error-Riddled Ethics Report? Were you aware of this report?
Yes.
Okay, so you were aware of all of the inconsistencies and inaccuracies that they highlighted in this article, several other articles locally that talked about the very clear inaccuracies within the report. Were you aware of those?
No.
You weren't aware of those
I was not.
inaccuracies?
I could have been made aware if people had showed up at hearings.
Now, let's talk about the hearings. Let's talk about that, because you mentioned due process. So are you saying today that every board member that requested a hearing was offered one within the 30 days that they were supposed to receive that hearing?
Absolutely.
Well, unfortunately, that is not true, because many members of this board were not offered that. And there is a timeline, there are timestamps, and anyone can see them. I'll keep going here. Anyone else can ask some more questions. I have plenty of them,
Well,
but I mean, there's many other questions to
and I
ask.
will determine who will ask questions. You have the floor now, but it is up to the chair to determine who's going to ask the next question.
Wonderful, that's fine.
We have to keep order.
Yes,
Thank you,
you're
board
right.
member.
Thank you.
And next will be Vice Chair Williams.
Mr. Morton?
Yes. Hi.
I just wanted to say thank you for your service and the longstanding service through several chairs of this board. And I want to thank the other members of the panel for volunteering their time to read through all the documents that were presented to them. And with the experience that you mentioned on the panel, we have people that have passed the bar and are legal counsel or lawyers that have experience. They have interpreted the policy and reported on findings of fact and presented your recommendation, your being the panel's recommendation to this board. So we're talking about experienced people who understand law, policy, statutes, and things like that.
Right.
Everyone, I think, except you, have a law degree. Or maybe there were two of you that do not have a law degree, but it appears that you have years of experience, professional experience,
Absolutely.
in interpreting policy and law and statute, and I appreciate your service. I am sorry that you had to endure what you experienced this past year. After serving for 5 or 6 years, you've never endured anything like that. And I appreciate your recommendations on how we can better interact and cooperate with your service or the service of the ethics panel. So I just wanted to say thank you for your service, and please share with the rest of the panel that I do appreciate your service.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Williams. Board Member Thomas.
Thanks for recognizing me, and good evening. Mr. Morton, board policy says that no one can discuss ethics complaints publicly unless the board has voted to make those findings public. In your presentation that you just gave, did you comment on any ethics complaints that the board has not yet voted on to make public?
I did not.
Okay. I have some other questions about the legal counsel that the ethics panel has retained. So can you state when legal counsel, legal services through, I think is Mr. Leslie Stellman, was hired to provide legal services to the council?
If you want the details of that, why don't you put your question in writing and I'll send you a detailed explanation of it. I can't tell you that off the top of my head.
Okay. Do you know how much the school district has paid using taxpayer funds to provide legal services to the ethics panel?
I don't know, but I do know that the panel members have gotten zero.
Understood. Well, according to PGCPS records, we've seen that the ethics panel's legal counsel has been paid to date over $70,000 to provide legal advice to the board's ethics panel. Are you aware that PGCPS procurement policy prevents the execution of a professional services contract over $25,000 without board approval? Are you aware of that?
I think that those kind of questions should go to legal counsel. You have one. You can talk with the general counsel and get answers to that. That's not something that I can answer for you.
Yep, thanks. As you know, board policy 0107 ethics regulation states that the PGCPS general counsel shall serve as ethics panel's legal counsel, unless a conflict exists that prevents the general counsel from serving, in which case the board shall appoint other counsel. So do you know what that conflict was that existed that prevented PGCPS general counsel from serving as the panel's attorney?
Again, you're asking me to speak for the general counsel, and I can't do that.
Understood. That's all. Thank you.
Did you have yours up again? Board Member Vice Chair Williams.
Mr. Stellman, this is just a statement, and I don't know if you want to comment back, but I'm sorry, Mr. Morton. Any technical missteps does not disqualify the actions that you all reviewed and provided your findings of fact on. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any further questions or discussions for Mr. Morton? Again, Mr. Morton, thank you for providing the annual report. And as other questions are sent in by board members, they will be directed to you.
Okay.
Have a great holiday.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your work. Next, we will have the progress report and the FY 2023 operating budget work session and public hearing recommendation from the Operations, Budget, and Fiscal Affairs Committee. Board Member Belinda Queen, Chair of the Operations, Budget, and Fiscal Affairs Committee, please present your report and the committee's recommendation. And I'm going to turn this over to the Vice.
Thank you so very much, Madam Chair. The Operation, Budget, and Fiscal Affairs Committee has convened monthly since the start of FY 2020 fiscal year, FY 2022. During these meetings, the committee, in conjunction with the Prince George's County Public School Administration, has discussed, taken action on, and/or been given thorough presentations on the following topics. OBAFA, which is the Operation, Budget, and Financial Affairs Committee 2021-2022 Work Plan, School Reopening Updates, COVID-related funding and spending, Summer School Review, FY 2023 Operation and Budget Priority Surveys and Results from the community members and from board members. Recommendation to the board regarding the FY 2023 Operation Budget Priorities, the CIP, Comprehensive maintenance plan to include ADA requirements, compliance updates, maintenance review, fourth quarter internal audit report, compensations and benefits review, the Blueprint School Phase 2 update, first quarter internal audit report, external audit report, school registrations review, approved vendors process for purchasing office. The ABAFA committee is on track to complete all of our outlined objectives in our 2021-2022 work plan. And we even added an in-depth presentation that was given last month from the Interagency Commission on Public School Construction, the IAC, regarding to the comprehensive maintenance plan and maintenance effectiveness assessment. We are committed to continuing the work of the board as it is designated for oversight of Prince George's County Public Schools, operations, and budget. The committee is grateful to have been successful in developing and cultivating a wonderful working relationship with the CEO designated representatives who attend all of our meetings, and I would like to say thank you to this awesome team of consummate professionals for their hard work and dedication. Our CFO, Mr. Michael Hertzman, our COO, Dr. Mark Forsett, Ms. Lisa Howell, the budget director, one of my favorites, no offense, he was the principal at one of my kids' school, and when I was PTA, Dr. Coleman, my ace boom, supporting services, Ms. Valerie Irvin, special assistants to the chief of staff. I would also like to thank my fellow committee members who have put up with all of these requests to sit and listen to all these presentations and go over all of this to make sure we're being fiscally responsible. My committee members, Vice Chair Hers, Board Member Boozer Strugger, Board Member Murray, and Madam Chair Dr. Miller, for allowing me to lead. Your collaboration and support are what makes the work easy. This is not just a duty. It is an honor to serve and make sure we're being responsible for the taxpayers' dollars. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Board Member Queen. Next, we have item 2.12, the policy governance recommendations. Board Member Ahmed, Vice Chair of the Policy and Governance Committee, please present your committee's recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Colleagues, the Policy and Governance Committee met virtually on November 16th, 2021, with the following members in attendance: Edward Burrows, Committee Chair, myself as Committee Vice Chair, Judy Mickens-Murray, Sonia Williams, and Alvaro Cerrone Ruiz. We discussed a number of different policies, and so I'll go through the two policies that we are recommending for the board to approve for public comment, and also a number of policies that are being recommended for rescission via the recommendation of the CEO. The first policy that is being proposed is a policy entitled Inclusive Environments for LGBTQIA+ People, and it is to establish a policy to promote an environment across Prince George's County Public Schools that is safe, welcoming, and affirming for all PGCPS students, staff, parents, and caregivers, regardless of their sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. The second policy is Indigenous Peoples Land Acknowledgement, and this is to reaffirm the board's commitment to celebrate the history, resilience, and contributions of Indigenous people. By honoring those who inhabited the land before us, we help to build understanding around the history of our own land and its Indigenous people, as well as set the tone for honoring all people who have been historically marginalized or underserved. The last bucket of policies are being recommended for rescission by the committee. Those policies are Board Policy 5110, Public School Choice Transfer Option, Board Policy 5119.5, Adult Education Tuition Waiver Senior Citizens, Board Policy 5140, No Child Left Behind, and Board Policy 6157, Study Habits. I move on behalf of the committee that the Board of Education accept these items for public comment at this time. And because it's a motion of the committee, no second is required. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Ahmed. We will now move into the public comment on agenda.
Oh, Madam Chair, that was a motion. We need to take a vote. Point of order. My apologies.
You need a second.
Second.
It has been moved and second to approve the Policy and Governance Committee recommendations regarding the board policies 5110, 5119.5, 5140, 6157, and the new draft for Indigenous Peoples Land Acknowledgement and Inclusive Environments for LGBTQIA+ people. Any discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor?
Madam Chair, there are some folks in the queue.
Oh. Board Member Saron Ruiz.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Board Member Ahmed, for working together on this such crucial policy that I'm so glad is now coming before the board. When Board Member Ahmed and I first spoke about this policy, it was with the intention of ensuring that we have measures in place to ensure our LGBTQIA youth are safe and feel welcome and respected in what is supposed to be their second home, which is our schools. Our intent was to codify the already established Administrative Procedure 5183 for transgender and non-conforming youth, and to really ensure that this stands in our county. After reviewing it with our systems, Office of Equity and Excellence Director, Mr. David Reese, and Board Member Boozer Struther, we believe that this policy as it stands, in its current standing, is what's truly going to benefit PGCPS. Being a part of the LGBTQ community is hard. Being a part of this community in a society as a young person of color is something especially hard. This policy is meant to say that as a board and as a county as a whole, we do not stand for any and all discrimination against any person that walks through the halls of our schools. I'm elated to have the opportunity to present this policy today before the board and hope that I can count on you all colleagues to push it forward for public comment so we can hear further sentiments from the public on this specific policy. And I hope that we can move it further along for its potential approval. So thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to speak, and thank you, Board Member Ahmed.
Thank you, Board Member Saron Ruiz. Board Member Pamela Boozer Struther.
Thank you so much, Chair. I know we'll have a chance to discuss this in the future, but I just wanted to say a simple thank you for your leadership and for your bravery. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you. Board Member Belinda Queen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm glad this is moving to public comments because I believe one of our speakers who actually answered the question very wrong before, so she wasn't able to get in, wanted to speak on this today, so this will give her Ms. White an opportunity to speak, to comment on it. So I'm glad it's just moving to public comments. So thank you so very much.
Board Member Valentine.
I just wanted to echo the sentiments of Board Member Boozer Struther. Every day I'm so much more impressed by you, colleague, Saron Ruiz. And when I think I can't be more impressed, I'm even more impressed with your leadership. You are an example for not just our students, but for our adults. I look up to you every day, and I appreciate your leadership. I will follow you as you continue to lead. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Valentine. Any more? We will now move into the public comment. Now we will take the vote on the proposed recommendations from the Policy and Governance Committee. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries, and the Policy and Governance Committee's recommendations are approved, have been approved. Now we will move into the public comment on the agenda. Although we had 15 people sign up, 4 have since decided not to appear or won't be present. I'll just put it that way. So you have registered to speak in a public forum where the Board of Education will listen to your comments. The board will not address your comments. You must speak on the topic for which you have been registered. All registered speakers will have 3 minutes to provide comments. At the sound of the buzzer, speakers may complete that sentence only. Registered speakers may not relinquish any part of their speaking time to another registered or unregistered individual. Speakers may not address individuals or issues with profanity or derogatory terms. You will be warned once. If you continue, you may be asked to leave the building. Speakers are encouraged to use titles rather than names. For example, principal, CEO, board member, deputy superintendent, etc. Your adherence to these guidelines will enable the public participation process to move smoothly. Our first registered speaker tonight will be Angela Martinez Portillo, 8th grade student at Hydesville Middle School, and on the Student Code of Conduct.
Hi. Okay. My school breaks the law every single day. The Maryland State Board of Education says that the school is required to give us a safe environment, free of harassment and violence, to learn in. That is not the case at Hydesville Middle School. It feels like here you have to protect yourself because nobody else at the school will. Even when students have gone to administrators, they are not heard and their concerns not recognized. When we did a poll of the 8th graders, we found that less than a third of the students feel safe when they are at our school, for many reasons. This is unacceptable. Sexual harassment and violence are two of the biggest issues at our school. When I tell my mom these stories of how people are getting sexually harassed, she is scared for my safety. Any person should be scared for our safety. I came here today to discuss changing the county student code of conduct. Currently, the student code of conduct does not protect students from sexual harassment, and there is no long-term punishment for these abusers in our school. When I went to the one person I'm supposed to trust to help me, my school counselor, and told her what was going on, she said, there is only so much we can do. She had to go by the student code of conduct. When I read it, I could not find anything about expulsion for students who commit sexual harassment and assault. How are we supposed to feel safe when abusers have free reign to do whatever they want, with no real consequences? Most girls don't feel safe telling their stories. They don't feel safe because they know if they do speak up, their harassers won't face any real consequences. When you suspend students, it teaches them nothing, just that they should be more careful about getting caught next time. Suspension feels like more of a vacation for students to take some time off from classes. This does nothing to disrupt the underlying conditions of why so much violence, assault, and harassment is happening at our schools every day. In my opinion, our administration has made it clear that they are in no hurry to help us and would rather sweep incidents under the rug than help the survivors. I see no other option than to ask the school board for their help before more people have to go through these cycles of abuse and violence. How many adults do we have to ask for before something is done? How long do we have to wait for justice? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Portillo. Next is Victor Villata Jr., 12th grade student at Charles H. Flowers High School, public transit in relation to school.
Good evening, members of the board. I am Victor Villalta Jr., a first-generation El Salvadoran student and a graduating senior from Charles H. Flowers High School, part of the Judy Scholars Program. Safety is a primary concern for myself and my peers. I've done the job of coming here to talk about public transit concerning our schools. And if it weren't for public transportation from New Carrollton to Upper Marlboro, I wouldn't be here. Unfortunately, high schools like Flowers, Wise, and Frederick Douglass are currently disconnected from these public transportation routes. Students would either have to rely on personal transportation or county school buses. But But what about Metro or PG Transit that has allowed an individual like me to appear before this body? Schools like my own, Charles River Flowers High School, has a stop which is 30 minutes away, sometimes through snowy, rainy, or windy days. Schools like Wise and Tall Oaks experience the same walk time to their nearest stop. Schools like Croom and Douglas require an hour or longer to walk to their closest stop. Yet we have schools like Eleanor Roosevelt, Largo, and Parkdale which conveniently have routes from the Metro or Prince George's Transit. Allowing these schools to be neglected from a transit line affects students who are less fortunate for transportation back home and affects individual student success. Board members, I ask you to take this testimony into consideration. A student like myself who had realized an issue, used my technical skills to make a data map, and try to consider the factors of what makes a bus stop a stop. As a student, I've taken public transit for granted and found respect for those who work towards county development. It's a difficult task. However, connecting these schools to the transit system will not only allow students like myself to participate in future board meetings, but also help students who stay after school, who work, are duty enrolled, or have other prior commitments. And this only doesn't assist students. It can be used by staff or parents who are unable to reach the school through other means. And I have an additional request. I would like to participate in the process of this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Villata. Next will be Zoe McCall, 11th grade student at Academy of Health Sciences, LGBTQIA+ policy.
Good evening, board members. My name is Zoe McCall, and I am a junior at the Academy of Health Sciences at Prince George's Community College. First, I would like to thank the board members who have put this into place for us already. For curating this policy and giving me the platform to speak on this today, I thank you. The importance of this policy regarding the inclusive environments of LGBTQ+ people will forever be important for all of the students in Prince George's Community College. No matter if I'm a part of that community or not, or if you are a part of that community or not, it's important to acknowledge it and make sure that they are supported. Creating a safe and healthy environment to house that diversity that Prince George's County takes pride in is something that we should continue to do and to acknowledge. We are PGCPS proud of the diversity that we have, and even though we are proud of it, are we creating an environment to support it? Diversity is just more than your skin color or the percentages of diversity regarding our staff and our students. Diversity is identities of our students regarding their sexual orientation, their gender identity, and their gender expression. As a county, we want to produce students that are bound for greatness, but they cannot be bound for greatness if they are uncomfortable in school. When it comes to the school building, me as an ally and an empath can see firsthand the uncomfort that comes along with being a part of that community. Whether it's bullying, whether it's feeling excluded, whether it's coming to school and worrying if someone will say something to you or address you in a way that you do not prefer to be addressed. Establishing this policy and pushing it forward and executing it allows all of these students to be comfortable in school and feel safe in school so that when they're in school, they can perform at their best ability and achieve greatness. It's all about understanding and offering support. Even if you personally don't agree with it, if you don't see it as something that is the best in the world, it's still important to support these students because we want them to rise and shine to be the best of their generation. Whether it be gender-neutral bathrooms, whether it be addressing these students by their preferred pronouns, whether it be allowing them to use their preferred name, it's important to give them that platform to be great so that we can stand behind them. This policy has so much potential, and I'm positive that with the correct execution, we can turn this environment into a safe one for absolutely everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCall. Next, Joseph Jakuta, Climate Parents of Prince George's, item 2.1.
Good evening, and thank you, Chair Miller, Vice Chair Williams, and the Board of Education. Since April, the Climate Change Action Plan Focus Work Group is hard at work trying to analyze and understand the 8 areas that the Board of Education has provided us to look at. through the resolution adopted last March. And we have been hard at work, and we've even, just this past week, started putting fingers to keyboard to work on an action plan to hopefully have it to you early in 2002. It's been pretty clear through our conversations that Dr. Matlock, Dr. Saunders, Mr. Stefanelli, and all the numerous staff we have spoken to have a great understanding of the issues facing our school system and how to solve many of these problems. But it's also clear that looking at how these issues touch on so many areas, education, transportation, operations, food service, capital programs, the list is almost pretty much every department in Prince George's County. To be successful, Prince George's County Public Schools is going to need a climate officer that can work across all of the different departments and work directly with the CEO in order to implement these types of changes. So I'm coming this evening to talk about how in fiscal year 2023, in the operating budget, we do need a full-time employee set aside as a climate officer at Prince George's County Public Schools. This is becoming a more common thing throughout the country. Even our neighbors over in Montgomery County have one, and it'll be time come fiscal year 2023 for us to have one too. This will pay dividends for our students in terms of healthier buildings for them to learn in, healthier buses for them to arrive at school at, healthier meals to eat at lunch, and wise investments in our future. So in fiscal year 2023 operating budget, please include a climate officer. And I have a moment other. I also would like to thank you, the CEO and the Board of Education, for including so much money in the ESER 3 allocations for HVAC upgrades. Those will also make our students healthier and save on operating costs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Jakuta. Next, Marcel Board, Imagine Lincoln Public Charter School Board Chair, Charter Renewal.
Good evening, Madam Board Chair and all of the Board of Education. I offer this testimony on behalf of Imagine and Prince George's County Board of Managers to respectfully support the request for extension of the charter renewal process for Imagine Lincoln Public Charter School. The initial extension of the charter renewal in 2020 was an additional year due to the difficulties of the COVID-19 pandemic was a wise decision. However, it should be noted that many of those very circumstances continue today. These challenges make it very difficult to provide an accurate reflection of the school's progress during the current charter term. Like all schools in Prince George's County, the COVID-19 pandemic has now impacted three school years for our scholars and staff. However, this impact has been even more substantial to Imagine Lincoln. 3 out of 4 years of our current charter term have been under the cloud of this incredible nationwide crisis that is widely recognized as the greatest educational challenge of our lifetimes. The challenges of reopening schools during the pandemic have been enormous. The start of the school year was unpredictable and tumultuous, with rapid changes to policies allowing students to learn remotely from home on August 25th. Initially, a significant number of Imagine Lincoln scholars moved to online learning and forced us to make sudden adjustments in terms of staffing and teaching methods. Additionally, we were forced to quarantine the entire 5th and 8th grade classes for 2 weeks in late September and early October due to the number of COVID-19 cases amongst our scholars in those grades. This actually forced postponement of the renewal visit of by 1 week. One of our top pressing and stressful issues, we have asked our principals, administrators, and teachers to fully prepare for an intensive site review and application process. The timing of the site review and application process, which coincided with the first 5 weeks of the school year, was tremendous cause of distress and pressure of our Imagine Lincoln community. While preparing for the site review, diagnostic assessments were substantially administered during the first 6 weeks of school. As a result of this mandatory testing, Imagine Lincoln had a grand total of 7 non-testing instructional days before the site visits. The early timeline of the site review proposed additional significant challenges. For example, the site review 10 Square offered 180 exemplary work samples at that time. Please consider our extension for renewal. We are respectfully requesting the extension of a 1-year renewal of the process, and we ask this in due process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd. Next, Mr. David Miller, Imagine Schools Regional Facilities Director, Charter Renewal.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Goldson, and guests. My name is David Miller. I'm the Regional Facilities Director for Imagine Schools Mid-Atlantic Region, and I speak to you this evening in support of Agenda Item 6.1, the request to extend the public charter school agreements for both the Imagine Foundations at Morningside and Imagine Lincoln Public Charter Schools for 1 year. Extension of these public charter school agreements in response to the ongoing COVID pandemic will allow a more authentic representation and assessment of the performance of both Imagine Foundations at Morningside and Imagine Lincoln. Thank you for allowing me to make public comments this evening, and I respectfully yield the remainder of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Sean Toller, Individual Charter Renewal.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, our CEO, Dr. Goldson, and to all of the guests here this evening. I too, not to be redundant, wanted to be here personally just to thank you all for the opportunity to operate schools in Prince George's County. It is our pleasure to impact the lives of children as well as families and continue to build communities. I'm also here this evening in support of Agenda Item 6.1, the request to extend the public charter school agreements for 2 of our schools, Imagine Foundations at Morningside and also Imagine Lincoln Public Charter School, for 1 year, given the complexities and the extenuating circumstances regarding the ongoing COVID pandemic. While I am excited about our growth and the progress that we're making, I just want to ensure that we have the opportunity to both embrace and give full attention to this very important process. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you, Mr. Toller. Gregory Travis Miller, Imagine Schools Regional Academic Director, Charter Renewal.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, CEO, and guests. My name is Travis Miller.
We can't hear you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Golson, and guests. My name is Travis Miller, and I'm the Regional Academic Director for Imagine Schools Mid-Atlantic Region. I'm here in support of Agenda Item 6.1, an extension of the public charter school agreement in response to the ongoing COVID pandemic will give a better opportunity to assess our schools and the performance of both Imagine Foundations at Morningside and Imagine Lincoln. Thank you for allowing me to make public comments.
Good evening, Madam Chair, the members of the board, Prince George's County CEO, all district leaders, and guests here tonight. My name is Lance Pace. I am the Regional Director for Imagine Schools, and I'm here this evening in support of Agenda Item 6.1, the request to extend the public charter agreements for both Imagine Foundations at Morningside and Imagine Lincoln Public Charter Schools for 1 year. While there is evidence that both schools are effectively moving in a positive direction, which can be observed when visiting each of those campuses, we are unfortunately still encountering the unavoidable struggles related to the COVID-19 pandemic. The 1 year extension will allow us adequate time, which has been naturally hindered, to receive all of our scholars back in our buildings in person and collect adequate data in a more normal setting that will give a better depiction of the successes and achievements we are making. Thank you for allowing me this time to speak on tonight.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Golston, and guests. I'm Anthony Pollard, board chair for Imagine Foundations at Morningside Public Charter School. I offer this testimony on behalf of Imagine Prince George's County LLC Board of Managers to respectfully support the request for extension of the charter renewal process for Imagine Foundations at Morningside Public Charter School. Though I acknowledge the wisdom of the initial extension of the charter renewal in 2020 for an additional year due to the difficulties of the COVID-19 pandemic, it should be noted that many of those circumstances continue today. These challenges make it very difficult to provide an accurate reflection of the school's progress during the current charter term. Like all schools in Prince George's County, the pandemic has now impacted three school years for our scholars and staff. However, the impact has been even more substantial to Imagine Foundations at Morningside. 3 out of the 4 years of our charter term have been under the cloud of this incredible nationwide crisis that is widely recognized as the greatest educational challenge of our lifetimes. The challenges of reopening schools during the pandemic have been enormous. The start of the school year was unpredictable and tumultuous, with rapid changes to policies allowing students to learn remotely from home on August the 25th. Initially, a significant number of Imagine Foundations at Morningside scholars moved to online learning and forced us to make sudden adjustments in terms of staffing and teaching methods. We also faced quarantining of several groups of scholars following potential exposures to COVID-19. On top of these pressing and stressful issues, we have asked our principals, administrators, teachers to fully prepare for an intensive site review and application process. The site review and application process, which coincided with the first 4 weeks of school, was a tremendous cause for distress and pressure while simultaneously administering diagnostic assessments during the first 6 weeks of school. Not only do these challenges prevent the presentation of an accurate view of Imagine Foundations at Morningside Public Charter School's performance, but the preparation took away from our prime mission of providing a transformative educational experience for our scholars and placed undue stress on our staff members. So we are respectfully requesting an extension of 1 year for the renewal process. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Dave. Thanks. Good evening. My name is Dave Brosh. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening and provide some comments. My wife and I have lived in the county now for 41 years and raised our 3 children who attended elementary, middle, high school in this public school system. I mention this for 3 reasons. First, we love this county and want the best for our neighbors, our children, and residents. Second, our now grown children played a number of sports, including soccer and baseball, and did so on grass playing fields. If I had children of school age today, I would not allow them to practice or play on artificial turf fields, given what I know now about them, and the toxins found in the components of these plastic and rubber fields, including tire crumb infill, which is basically ground up tires, as much as 80 tons per field. Third, the costs that have gone will have to be borne by the school system to install, maintain, and retain artificial turf fields. While both grass and artificial turf fields have an installation cost, there will be an additional cost to maintain them properly. Grass fields are cheaper and in the short and long term. This is especially the case when replacing our old artificial turf fields, which have a relatively short lifespan. Furthermore, I strongly oppose these fields because of the various environmental impacts, including extreme heat as high as 180 degrees in the summertime, runoff that contaminates our streams and the Anacostia and Potomac watersheds, and the fact that there are no ways to dispose of the turf after its short lifespan. Finally, the Baltimore Ravens were practicing and playing on artificial turf and went back to natural grass after the players demanded it. The athletes were suffering ankle and knee injuries as well as skin abrasions. These same problems will be experienced by our children when playing on the artificial turf. Tonight, I request that the school system place a moratorium on any further installations until the school system has thoroughly researched the characteristics of artificial turf, the risk to our children, their environmental harm, and the high costs to install, maintain, and reinstall. It is impossible to go into much detail in 3 minutes, given the time we have tonight, but I'd like to ask for another meeting or forum where a full discussion and presentation of these facts can be made. I would be happy to be part of that process. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Broch. That concludes the public comment and the testimonial comments who registered and provided written or electronic testimony have been posted on board docs for review by board members and the public. Dr. Goldson, we're moving on to 4.0. Please begin your presentation of item 4.1.
Thank you. And the PowerPoint will be pulled up. Good evening. It is my pleasure to present to you the 2022-2023 proposed operating budget for Prince George's County Public Schools. Transformation based in equity and excellence with the impetus for the development of the strategic plan which will guide our work over the next 5 years. This budget is deliberately aligned to our new strategic plan. It will ensure appropriate funding for a well-developed framework that will ultimately lead to revolutionary improvement to the school district. On October 28th, the Board of Education passed its fiscal year 2023 operating budget priorities, which are as follows: expansion and improvement of curriculum and instruction, professional learning, mental health supports and resources for students, reduced class sizes, after-school clubs, activities and mentoring, and funding for the recommendations of the focus work groups. My CEO focus this year mirrors the Transformation 2026 strategic plan imperatives: academic innovation, transformational workforce, organizational learning culture, safe and supportive environments, infrastructure, and operational enhancements. In this presentation, you will see how each imperative and the Board of Education priorities are reflected in the proposed budget. From a revenue perspective, there are unprecedented positive and negative changes to consider this year. Initial estimates of massive revenue growth have been tempered by reductions in our official enrollment submitted to the Maryland State Department of Education at the end of September. These counteracting changes place us in a more moderate fiscal position. As you are aware, the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, better known as Kerwin 2, became law on April 9, 2021. Over the next 10 years, this law comprehensively changes the way the school districts in Maryland operate, report, receive revenue, and especially the way the school districts are held accountable. Based on the new legislation, the Maryland General Assembly Department of Legislative Services projected revenues by school district beginning in the fiscal year 2023. This chart shows current year unrestricted revenues versus those the Department of Legislative Services projects for the next school year. These forecasts show an estimated increase of total unrestricted revenue to our district of more than $250 million. However, all of the Department of Legislative Services projections to date are based on pre-COVID-19 enrollment trends and do not yet reflect accurate assumptions of actual revenue next year. This chart outlines the actual enrollment for the last 5 years. Based on K-12 enrollment growth through September 30th, 2019, the Department of Legislative Services made an estimate of 133,000 students was reasonable. However, due to the pandemic, the official enrollment across the state has decreased dramatically over the last 2 years. Our actual K-12 enrollment this September was 8,813 students lower than the Department of Legislative Services growth expectations. Instead of increases of more than $250 million, we must now project mitigated unrestricted growth of $115 million, which is less than half of what was anticipated. This is in line with normal growth in the pre-pandemic and pre-Kerwin years and will be primarily utilized for increased employee compensation. It is also important to note that there is more uncertainty around revenue than there was in previous years. As the blueprint formulas are enacted, there are many unknown factors affecting required state and county revenue sources, including how current year enrollment and our free and reduced meal counts will be considered in light of massive statewide declines. Precisely which current year formula funds will be encompassed in the new foundation formulas, and how will the county maintenance of effort and local share calculations work? In short, you can expect preliminary state aid projections released in January will be substantially different from our current projections, and changes may be required as the Board of Education considers its requested budget. Now we will review the expenditure side, the resulting budget gap, and my proposal for closing that deficit. The current year budget total is $2.77 billion, including both restricted and unrestricted funds. We are projecting increased compensation of approximately $69 million, primarily from the known negotiated contract increases and estimated increases for PGCEA and Local 2250 agreements, for which negotiations recently began. PGCEA represents approximately 10,000 members, including classroom teachers, professional school counselors, various specialists, and athletic directors, just to name a few. And Local 2250 represents approximately 6,000 employees, including food and nutrition workers, bus drivers, secretaries, and selected maintenance, to name a few. Those two unions combined represent approximately 80% of our workforce. Last spring, in order to close the financial budget gap for the current year, we made early payments on our lease purchases and to the other post-employment benefits, better known as OPEB trust. These must now be restored for the fiscal year 2023 budget at a cost of $47 million. The other additions on this slide represent some necessary increases related to class size, curriculum expansions, technology improvements, and mental health support expansions, which I'll highlight in the upcoming slides. Back in May of 2019, I announced 3 years of additional longevity steps for long-term employees present during the economic downturn between 2009 through 2012. Along with those steps, we granted longevity differentials for those employees already at the top of the scale. Funded primarily through central office reductions over the last 3 years, the steps have now been fully restored, and the current year represents the final year of the planned 3 years of the longevity differentials. Finally, because this chart includes restricted funding, you will note a sizable decrease in federal grant funding. This is because the full value of the 2- and 3-year COVID-19 grants were included in the current year budget. In the current year, we will use approximately half of this funding, leaving the other half for the next fiscal year. When you subtract the baseline revenue that we expect to receive from the cost of doing business, which is also known as our expenditures, then we end up with a budget gap of $10.5 million. I am proposing to close this deficit through central office reductions of $1.3 million, an alternative school redesign aligned with best practices for our students, changes to our assumptions for workers' compensation and unemployment charges, and additional use of fund balance. I would like to point out that our budget assumptions and use of fund balance are now at the appropriate level. After 4 consecutive years of adding to our fund balance by under-projecting lapse, we fully spent our budget last year and decreased our unused general fund balance. Let's look at the critical investments we must make to support our students, which is the core of our work. The pandemic dramatically changed the lives of students, families, and staff in ways that can never be fully quantified. In October, our chiefs of academics, accountability, and school leadership presented to the Board of Education a comprehensive plan for mitigating interrupted student instruction. Over the next 2 years, this plan will utilize more than $130 million in federal grants and general funds to address just the academic portion of the interrupted student instruction. These additional supports will assure that interrupted instruction does not become lost instruction. Recognizing the pandemic impacts on mental health and the need to accelerate supports, last year I presented to you a phased plan to provide at least 1 full-time mental health therapist in every school by fiscal year 2024. This year, we have successfully expanded to 47 additional schools and remain poised to meet the aggressive timeline. Our goal by the end of the school year is to have a licensed mental health clinician in 144 schools. Of course, the need for mental health services goes far beyond COVID-19. We will continue to fund this critical program as part of our baseline budget as federal relief grants conclude. Our teaching staff does excellent work, and we want to continue that work in their absence by continuing to recruit a larger pool of high-quality substitute teachers. $2 million has been included in this budget to raise substitute teacher salaries. This will make Prince George's County Public Schools substitute compensation extremely competitive with the nearby school districts. And as our school leadership team and area offices have reviewed our alternative schools, we have determined that these students can be better served by some programmatic changes and additional supports. The current schools should be converted to a school-based model, allowing students to maintain strong connections to their comprehensive schools. The alternative programs will be further developed to serve the social, emotional, and academic needs of our students. These changes will yield a savings of $2.5 million annually. School cleanliness and maintenance will remain a priority as we continue COVID-19 safety protocols into next school year. This budget adds an additional 20 cleaners for schools, as well as equipment and air quality services. Through recent budgets, we have focused on funding small class sizes in our early grades and reducing the largest classes at the secondary level. Now we are funding secondary schools more comprehensively by adding $2.5 million to the grades 6 through 8 SBB allocation, which stands for student-based budgeting, an additional $2.5 million to the grades 9 through 12 student-based budgeting allocation. This additional allotment will be specifically focused on reducing the number of students in each course and providing additional course offerings. We are also continuing our review of the student-based budgeting model. For the current year, we completed a pilot review of elementary school budgeting models. And for next year, we are exploring formula-based equity allocations for a pilot group of middle and K-8 schools. In the spring of 2020, our team met the challenge of distance learning by rapidly accelerating the district's long-term plan to provide one-to-one student devices. Our efforts to close the digital divide reach beyond the pandemic. Maintaining the one-to-one environment, even as students are back in physical classrooms, ensures that we will have access to a wide variety of digital learning resources. Purchasing so many student devices at once created a long-term liability as devices break down and must be replaced. Our team has developed a sustainable 15-year framework for refreshing technology moving forward and transitioning these purchases from federal grants to part of our baseline general fund budget. We have outlined the schedule to move forward from today through the Board of Education voting on the requested budget on February 24th, 2022. There will be 3 Board of Education work sessions and public hearings held on January 27th, February 3rd, and February 10th. We will take Board of Education member questions during each of these sessions for the identified division, and then we will hear from the public on what they believe is a priority, should be a priority for Prince George's County Public Schools. Please note that Board of Education member questions for the first board work session are due in about 4 weeks on January 3rd, 2022. This will give our team sufficient time to answer the questions in writing and post responses publicly prior to the meeting. The 2023 CEO proposed budget books have been provided to you in hard copy. The document will also be posted tomorrow morning on Board Docs and prominently on our website. And my team and I look forward to working with the Board of Education in coming months to further develop the 2022-2023 operating budget. You will also receive this presentation as well as the electronic version of this board book at the conclusion of this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Golson. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before we take comments, I would like to yield the floor to Board Member Queen, the Chair of the OBAFA Committee, to discuss the budget hearing dates. Board Member Queen?
Thank you so much, Madam Vice Chair and Madam Chair. Thank you to my Vice Chair for reminding me also. So the public hearing recommendation for the Operation and Budget Committees, at our last meeting, we voted to have 2 in-person and 1 virtual. Our chair of the board and our CEO has made a recommendation to the board to do all 3 of them virtual. So I wanted to bring that to the attention of the board to see how we would like to move with this.
Thank you, Committee Chair. Board Member Queen, the basis for this request is based on the new challenges under the Omicron variant, and to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to participate in the budget hearings. We typically receive a large number of participation with the virtual setting, and so that has been the recommendation made to the OBAFA Committee. We will now take a motion on the floor to accept that revision to the budget hearing meetings.
So moved, Madam Chair.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any discussion? Board Member Ahmed?
Yes, could you just clarify the motion? So the recommendation of the committee was to have 2 in person. So that is the motion that's before the body currently? Or
The motion on the floor is to have all 3 hearings done virtually.
Okay, and just to clarify for the public and just to confirm with everybody here, these types of hearings do not have a limitation to the number of folks that can sign up to testify. So ideally, this will allow for very many people to participate, maybe more than in person, correct?
That is correct. In person, we would have to set a limit.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposition? The motion passes.
Okay. Next, we will have
Madam, I'm sorry, Madam
Board Member
Chairwoman,
Queen.
I didn't opposite. I didn't oppose, but I'm a little disappointed. I really wanted us to do in person because I wanted people to get a chance to see Central High School. That was one of our schools. I want y'all to see my Central, but thank you, Madam Chair.
I'll take the hit on that. Okay. Now, are there any, thank you, Dr. Golson, for your comprehensive report. Are there any questions or discussion relative to Dr. Golson's report? Vice Chair Williams.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you for that comprehensive report. And I'm always impressed by the package that you put together for our budget. It is you and your staff that are the best suited to determine how we spend our budget, and it's our job as the board to ensure that it is used for its intended purpose and that we get the outcomes that are expected. And so just some things that I'm just following up on some of the things that we discussed last year. They're not questions that should be answered today, but I think as we go through the budget hearings, there's certain things that I'm looking for to hearing more about. So I believe last year we started utilizing throughout the school system the zero-based budgeting process where we started from scratch. Throughout the process, I would love to hear, the differences that you're seeing with this new way of developing the budget. And I was glad to hear that we're continuing with a revision to the how we calculate funding for schools. So I'm also looking forward to hearing, using the equity model, how that's looking for schools, in particular the small schools that we have in the school system. This is a question that I'd like to know the answer for. Are we looking at changes to the locked and unlocked positions in the budget this year? Do we have any, are we adding or subtracting locked and unlocked positions for the schools? As we go through the budget and the discussions, I would love to see a difference or somehow distinguish the funding that we're using from Kerwin, COVID, versus our normal funding process. I'd love to see how we are doing that. This is so important because sometimes when we do things over time, we sort of forget. And I just truly, truly, truly want to thank you for restoring the steps to our staff. This has been a long-term vision for you, 3 years when you first came on board as interim. So thank you for completing that. And I also want to thank you for making a decision to not put us in the same position as we went through the COVID challenges that were brought to us that were financial. So I just wanted to thank you for that. And that's all my comments.
Board Member Shayla Adams Stafford.
Thank you so much, and thank you, CEO Goldson, for that really great presentation. I also just wanted to thank you for the increase in substitute teacher pay. I think that's going to be really amazing and really help us to be competitive regionally. I wanted to ask 2 questions. I know you mentioned a change in the alternative school model in which I just wanted some clarity. Are you saying that students would return to their comprehensive schools and that would contribute to the cost savings? Because I'm wondering how, with students returning to their comprehensive schools, if there may need to be more training to support that type of transition. And then I was really excited to see the increase in mental health supports. I know that's something that a lot of board members have been very passionate about, and I know that in my district, many students and community members are already feeling the impact of having more counselors and mental health workers on staff. I was wondering if the administration had explored any text mental health support programs or virtual support programs in order to reach the goal of the 207 schools more quickly, or to provide more comprehensive support, more widespread support for students at possibly a lower cost?
Board Member Queen. Board Member Queen, this is your second round, so I'm going to, okay.
Back to math school. I'm messing with you. Thank you, Madam Chair. First, Dr. Golson, again, as my colleague has already said, I want to thank you so very much for when we made sure that when I came on board that the steps were given back to our employees. I think that was so very important, and you guys stepped up to the plate and made sure that was done. And again, as Board Member Adam Stafford said, I had on here the mental health support. You guys know that's really been dear to my heart as a parent who raised a lot of kids, and some of them are socially, emotionally, especially when you get them through the foster care system. I think it's so important, but even so more important that now that I still even get emails, and even just talking to a parent whose daughter was going to speak, who feel like that the kids, you know, at their high school, and this is a teenager talking, are so stressed right now with the schoolwork and COVID, that they feel like that's why so many issues are going on within our schools, the social, emotional stress. So the mental health part of education is so very important now. We're at a time where, I mean, I guess when I was growing up, I wouldn't have thought of the need of it as much it is now. I think we were probably a lot more in denial, because when I grew up, you didn't tell nobody you need mental support. But nowadays, it's really needed, not just for the students, some of our staff, and some of the parents. So I just want to say kudos for that, because it's so very important as a school system that we realize that we have to step up and make sure that we have the available service for every child. So I think that is so very important. But I do have one question. On page 6 of your report, you talked about the cutting the number of students that have been enrolled in our schools. I know yesterday at the ABAFA committee meeting, we had the review, the school registration review. And part of that review, the director, he talked about the new system that you have. And part of talking about that new system, we talked about the issues and how a lot of people were still waiting to be registered, how we had problems. And I'm wondering, could this be the fact where we have so many students, or do we know the number of people who are still waiting to be registered? And so I'm really curious about that. Could that have an impact? I doubt if it's 8,000 students. I hope not, still waiting to be registered. But could this have an impact on that number? So I really wanted to get an estimate on that, because I know it is a new system and it is a lot of problems with that new system, and it is going to be adjustment to everyone. So that is really my question and concern now, is does that system, because I think you said at most we get paid the money per student, and if that's going to be a holdup, we may need to look at how we are registering students and see if we can get them registered a little bit more faster, even if we have to get somehow help, even if we have to get what you call them, people where you get temporary services, but to make sure we're getting our students registered. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, Board Member Queen. Board Member Valentine.
Thank you, Madam CEO, for your staff and for your research and the work that you all have done. At the beginning, you mentioned this budget alignment with our strategic plan. And so as we're moving forward through the process of engaging with the public, if we can identify how this budget gets us closer to 2026, outcome goals, the clear goals that we've set, and then clearly align how this in this year is going to get us there by 2026. Second point, obviously, of concern clearly is enrollment, and that the drop is really in the basis of the gap. How will this budget help us to reclaim those students? Where are those? This is not something unique to Prince George's County, obviously, but those students went somewhere, and engaging with those parents, understand why they left and how to get them back, will hopefully ensure that we will not have future gaps. And so how does this budget get us to that point will be questions I think I would have as a citizen and as someone who's looking for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Valentine. Board Member, all right, we will now go down to the budget consent agenda, and Dr. Ghost. Board Member Queen, second round.
I was waiting for the second round to get this in there. So I just wanted to say thank you so very much for cutting the fat from the top with our staff and our administration. That means a lot to me. That is done at the top. You know that. But I got to get this shameless plug in as we cut the fat. Let's not forget my Largo High School who needs a field. I'm hearing about this football field in my Central High School that needs a track. So as we continue to cut the fat, let's remember these high schools that need certain academic things for their fun. So just remember that. Lago, I'm gonna get that plug in. Let me say it again. Lago need a field, turf field. As the man stated, they need that good turf. And Central need track. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Board Member Queen. I don't see any more lights on, so we'll move to the budget consent agenda. Dr. Golson, would you please introduce items 5.1 and 5.8? And we will be separating 5.7 and 5.8 when we vote.
Items 5.1 through 5.6 requires board approval of the January 2022 expenditure requirements, fiscal year 2022, tax-exempt municipal lease, purchase financing for the procurement of replacement buses, textbooks, and instructional computers, contract awards for mental health and behavioral supports, autism coordination services, the Stepping Stones Group LLC, and Progressive Therapy LLC, and lastly, curriculum audit for social studies.
I have a motion.
I so moved that. All of them things she just read. Second.
It has been moved in second to
Miller.
approve items 5.1 through 5.6. Any discussion? All for the vote. All in favor? Board Member Adams, Stafford.
I had a question regarding the social studies curriculum audit. I wanted to ask if, I'm just trying to, so is the curriculum audit it's to analyze the current curriculum that's in place, and will they be recommending, just trying to understand, will they be recommending new curriculum? Are you looking to adopt new curriculum, or maybe could you just provide a bit more context behind the curriculum audit?
So the audit means that they'll analyze our existing curriculum, let us know where there are gaps, and then we'll have to figure out how to close those gaps.
My only just thought or suggestion here was, just as I was looking at the RFP, I was sort of wondering if there could be some mention and discussion about high quality instructional materials in terms of, sort of what their recommendations, well, whatever firm you choose, that could be sort of a priority for them in terms of ensuring access to that. And I know that was part of your strategic plan as well, but then also having students engage in, possibly, some project-based or those types of innovative learning strategies, because I know that that also aligns with what you outlined in your strategic plan. But if there's going to be an audit conducted, that high-quality instructional materials are at the forefront of what they recommend or bring forward.
Was that a question or a suggestion? Okay, thank you. So we can proceed with the vote. All in favor?
Sorry, Dr. Miller, one more question.
Board Member Harris.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation earlier, Dr. Golson. One question about the autism coordination services. It says that the the contract begins upon ratification and runs through June 2024. Upon satisfactory service and mutual agreement with the Board of Education, the contract has provisions for 2 additional one-year periods of renewal. So do we vote on this again in June 2022? No, it runs all the way to 2024.
No, we'll come back next year.
Okay, got it. Yep. Okay.
Has anyone else decided to turn their light on again? With that, we will proceed with the vote on approving the consent agenda items 5.1 through 5.6. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. Okay, 5.7 and 5.8. On my sheet, they showed, it seems it's the same thing. What's the distinction between those two?
It's not, they are actually two different
It's a typo.
ones. One's for technical advisor and one's for financial.
Okay, thank you.
So I can present them separately.
All right, so then, 5.7, is there any discussion?
I have to present it first.
I didn't hear you, Dr. Golson.
I need to present it first.
Oh, okay.
Item 5.7, ACF Blueprint Schools Phase 2 Technical Advisor Contract Approval requires the board approval.
Any discussion? Well, first of all, let me get a motion and then we can have a discussion. May I have a motion to approve 5.7?
So moved.
It's been moved and second to approve ACF Blueprint Schools Phase 2 Technical Advisor Contract Approval. Any discussion? Board Member Rahila Ahmed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, as you know, this board approved a $1.2 billion corporate contract to build 6 schools in our district via the Public-Private Partnership, or P3 program. Also, to my recollection, we also approved at least 2 staff members specifically designed to manage or oversee this program and this process. And we also have an entire staff of, an entire department that receives millions of dollars to help execute a wide variety of capital programs in our district. There's also joint meetings between the district and the county on this project, on this program. And so the question that keeps percolating in my head is, why are we approving nearly $4.5 million more to consultants to execute this program? I mean, I'm looking at what they're going to be advising on. It's education specifications, site reviews, swing space, financial modeling. We have people for that. Our people do that. Why does it cost $4.5 million to have consultants do something that we can and we should, in my opinion, do in-house? And so, to me, it's our job to set the expectations when it comes to a number of these things and not consultants. But really, the underlying issue that I have is that the P3 program is costing us more and more every time I turn my head. And those are funds that I believe should be going to addressing our public infrastructure through public programming and not to corporate entities to support 3% of our school buildings. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And so I will not be voting in support of this item or in support of 5.8. This was a way for me to explain at least to you all why I'll be not voting in that fashion. I did have one follow-up request. I did not see in either of these items the proposal tabulation sheet. And so if that could be uploaded to board docs so that we can know who were the competitors and how much were the competing proposals, that would be great. That's all, Madam Chair.
Dr. Golson, did you want to comment?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to have our director of P3 provide a response, and just want to reiterate, this is not for the current P3. This is actually for the new tranche that the state approved.
Jason Washington, Director of the Office of Alternative Infrastructure Planning and Development. It's a pleasure to be here. In regards to both of the contracts before you, the need for the financial advisor is, as Dr. Golson alluded to, this is for Phase 2. This is for the state-funded P3 that is totally separate and apart from the current locally funded Phase 1 that we have. The reason for the advisor is that, yes, we have folks that know a little bit about financing, but what we're talking about is looking at 30 years and 5 different partners now. We are going to have to partner with IAC. We're going to have to partner with Maryland Stadium Authority. also the county and ourselves. And so we need to be able to evaluate the best value for the school system, as well as the appropriate procurement model for the school system, as well as making sure that, some of the questions that came up in the previous discussion around value for money and scope and scale, all of that is appropriate and commensurate with our expectations for a phase 2. The technical advisor, to be very clear, that is, one of the things that we believe protects the school system. One of the big cost overruns that we have and that I've been told about as it relates to capital programs are site conditions. One of the big things and the big drivers here is analyzing the site conditions of prospective school locations. And that is key to keeping our exposure down as it relates to the cost and risk transfer set forth in any agreement that's put in place. And so while I understand and respect the position, we do not have the capacity to provide the expertise and the support to protect the school system in structuring the deal. I can say these are advisors. They are not making the decisions. We will be coming back to provide what those advisors have told us. And they will have to justify, and we will have many meetings through work groups and the task force that's to be put together to examine and to decide as a locality, a school system and county, what makes sense for Prince George's County.
Vice Chair Williams.
Thank you so much. When I joined the school board in 2014, I was surprised to hear that there was an $8 billion school construction funding gap. We've heard many of our parents come in and discuss the school conditions, from mold, from failing infrastructure at our schools, failing heating and air. And if we continue to operate the same way and expect a different result, that would not be prudent on us as a board or us as a school system. When I joined the board, Mr. Lee, one of the questions that I asked was, how many staff would it take for us to oversee the existing, I think it was 200 schools at the time, all the bus lots, all of the office buildings? And Mr. Levy came in, who used to be the director of IAC, and he was here at PGCPS at one time. His response to me was that we would have to be as large as Clark Construction. We are not in the business of building schools, we're in the business of educating students. So in order for us to get past that $8 billion school construction gap, we had to do something different. We're currently doing 2 additional things to bring new schools on board quicker. We're doing the modular building, and we're doing the ACF, on top of our traditional design, bid, build process. As a result, we are going to see, I think, nearly 10 new schools over the next 5 years. That is an amazing feat for a school district of this size. In order for us to see something different, we have to do something different. I am ecstatic to see that not only are we able to do a phase 2, but we're also getting support from the state. Our first one is funded by the school system and the county. This second round will allow us to build new schools quicker, to get our kids out of the moldy schools, the leaking schools, the schools that have infrastructure challenges every winter, every summer. So we have to do this. So I applaud the fact that we're able to negotiate with the state to get them to support our efforts to get our kids in new state-of-the-art buildings for a long time. And we have to remember, when these schools are turned over to us in 30 years, they're basically going to be 90% new. We're getting the new infrastructure will be there, and new windows and doors and things, so that when we take over the building, after we pay the mortgage on these schools, that's what the ACF basically is a mortgage, we will have a school that is practically new. So I applaud the efforts that our staff is doing. I appreciate the work, and I'm so excited to see this idea that was started back in like 2015, to see it come to fruition and to see us have a second round of ACF schools. Thank you.
Board Member Queen.
Oops, thank you so very much, Madam Chairwoman. I just want to again say thank you. Good to see you again, Ms. Washington. Don't forget about my call about my house. But as Board Member Williams just said, we do have to do something different. We have to think outside the box. But it's good to ask questions, as Board Member Rahila Ahmed has just said. We need to make sure that we are making sure that taxpayer dollars is being spent wisely, and they do want to know. Sometimes when we hear things they may not understand, it does need to be broken down. All of us don't know what an RPF is and how money is done in a certain way, and all of us, unfortunately, don't have the experience Ms. Williams have with working with contractors. So our public don't know either. So sometimes it is good to ask these questions and for us to be transparent and let the public know what it's for, where the money is being spent, and why. So again, I thank you, Board Member Ahmed, for asking that question. I thank you, Mr. Washington, for stating it clearly, the need for it and the reason why. And again, thank you, Dr. Golson, for your awesome work as always. I'm excited about the schools. I'm excited about getting the kids out the mode in the special schools, but even more excited after being on a meeting this week with our fire chief and knowing some of the violations that we need to be out of our schools and getting more schools. So I'm even more excited to know that we're moving in the right direction here in Prince George's County Public Schools. We may not where we want to be or would like to be, but we will get there, and the only way we can get there is to get there together. So to each of my board members, I thank you so very much, because it's going to take each and every one of you for us to get there together. Thank you.
Board Member Adam Stafford.
Yes, I had a few questions. In terms of the price, so these are advisors, are they going to be coming on full-time? Or is this like paying for several salaries over the course of several years? And what are their deliverables? I'm just really thinking that, this is probably, we've gotten ourselves into the P3 for good reason. We need to build new schools quickly. But it seems as though this could potentially be a way for, consultants to really run up the bill, honestly, because I'm looking at these prices and I'm thinking, what kind of competitive process was there in order to determine, what is a good consultant rate for this work that is to be done? I mean, if they're just providing advice and you're saying they're not actually doing the work, who would be tasked with doing that work? This is a pretty hefty price tag. So I just wanted to get some information just about just sort of how they arrived at this pricing. Is this going to be paying for full-time staff? Just some more information about that.
Were you finished? What I hear your questions alluding to is the process, procurement, et cetera. And Dr. Golson has agreed to provide the board with workshops on the procurement process. And some of these questions that you're generating today can be addressed at that time. You can still send the questions in, but it would be helpful for them to be able to elaborate more in depth in reference to how this procurement process and the securing of the contracts work. So with that, Board Member Boozer Strother.
I didn't know if they were going to provide an answer before we moved on.
Excuse me?
I wanted to see if they had any answer or response before we moved on.
Did you have any response? Okay.
Board member, first of all, there was a procurement process. The RFP was sent out in July, I believe, and respondents They priced it, and the pricing is based upon the scope of work. And so they are on time, ours for the next 3 years. This is the guaranteed max price. We went through rounds, best and final, for all of the respondents, the finalists, rather. The deliverables, in the sense of the financial advisor, will be advising the work group and the task force that have been set up to guide this process in the selection of schools. Number two, they will also prepare and structure the procurement process. So once we move to a solicitation, their job is to manage that process on our behalf to ensure that we follow all legal standards set forth by PGCPS procurement. They also will be responsible for determining what is known as the value for money or affordability basis, that we will determine the size and the scope of a phase two. On the technical side, they will be responsible for a few things. One, development, as was mentioned before, educational and technical specifications, as well as performance specifications. Since this is a different process than the usual IAC process, the usual school-based educational specifications will need to be modified because we don't know the exact schools just yet. And so that is a process that will be developed by the technical advisors. Additionally, their cost incorporates looking at up to 20 sites. So depending on affordability, they have the ability to go and look at the geotech and the civil components of 20 prospective school sites for potential inclusion into a phase two process. Additionally, they will be responsible for a deliverable of a district-wide swing space plan in conjunction with whatever is decided by the phase two schools, as well as the CIP program. And finally, they will also provide support for us through a procurement process to respond, to answer, to ensure that our specifications and technical requirements are adhered to by whoever is selected and by whoever is bidding. And so there will be reports that will be provided periodically by both advisors as well as we go through this process. And so that's one, how they derived at the cost, and then that is also the deliverables that we will be expecting and will be provided by the technical advisors and the financial advisors.
So just thank you for that answer to that. And I guess I'm wondering if we are entering into a multi-year engagement, have you all analyzed whether it would be more cost efficient to bring someone on staff long-term that could do this work as opposed to paying consultants annually? Because how many consultants will this be? Will this be 2 consultants getting paid $1 million between them a year, basically for 3 years? Or is this a team of consultants? I mean, my colleague stated we would need, what did you say, Vice Chair, the amount of people in Clark Construction, right, to do all of this work? I mean, is it going to be a team of people, or those are some of the follow-up questions that I have.
Well, I can state for example, with the technical advisor, this is an architecture firm, this is 3 civil firms, this is a geotechnical firm, this is a relocation and logistics firm, all of that, and this is their price. So whatever is needed to execute our objectives, this is it. And so it's not, 1 or 2, and I can't say how that is broken down. And it's also project management. We will have access to whatever we need to provide the support that we need. On the financial side, it literally will be, we will have a financial analyst, an advisor that will be able to help us structure, and that's the big key, is structuring a deal that makes sense for us from an affordability standpoint, while also ensuring that we have the state commitment that is structured in a way to where we can take maximum advantage of that.
Thank you. Board Member Valentine.
Thank you, and I appreciate the comments of my colleagues. It's important that we, as board members, carry out the fiduciary responsibility of taxpayer dollars, and so a part of that is scrutinizing and holding our administration accountable. At the same time, I appreciate the comments and the responses, and most importantly, we've in the past come to you all and asked you all to ensure that we are giving particularly our minority-based enterprises a fair shot at our system. And to see not only a woman-run contract, but also an African-American-run contract established and say that, given a fair shot, we can do the job. And so as I'm looking at the outline, that this is fair market value. This is someone who competed, applied, educated, historically black college, and is here to do the work. I give credit to the process that we go through to accept applications, ensure the scope of work is one that's going to ensure that our taxpayer dollars, my taxpayer dollars, are spent efficiently, and that we on the front end ensure that we don't lose money on the back end. I mean, you could be cheap on the front end all you want, but they tell you, you know, like the old adage, the mechanic tell you, pay me now or pay me later. And so I have no reason to distrust the process. Again, it's important that the questions that were asked are answered. They were answered. There are additional questions that will be asked, and I believe they will be answered truthfully. But again, we asked you all, and we challenged you all to ensure that in a county that is majority African American, so-called highest medium income African American county in America, do we have people who look like us in this place, who are educated in schools that were run by us, to do this work? And it's clear that the answer resounding is yes, with given an opportunity to do the work. And so again, the process is public, the scope of work is there, what will be done is outlined, and we are at the table doing the work. Thank you.
Board Member Harris.
Sorry. So Mr. Washington and Dr. Golson, a lot of the stuff that you just described is something that you typically find in a SAL. So is there, I'm sorry, a statement of work, I speak in acronyms. So is that something that you're able to provide for us at some point in time? Yeah, I just see head nods. That's good then. Thanks.
Were you through?
Yep, that's it.
Board Member Boozer Strother, I apologize, I had cut it off.
Okay, thank you so much. I just want to thank administration, thank you, Dr. Goldson and team, for bringing forward these two contracts. You know, a big thank you to the General Assembly for the Built to Learn Act and our partner, County Council, moving forward. We know from our first experience with the 6 middle schools, this is big, it's complicated, and Jones Lang LaSalle led us through that, educated us, provided us multiple models of which schools, the type of schools, how we got to the 6 new middle schools. They're proven, and I believe they are going to, once again, with this much larger look at 20 sites, give us excellent recommendations as they already have done. So I'm pleased to see that they're continuing to work with us. And I will say from this experience with the deepest gratitude that new schools are coming. This has been extremely difficult on students and families in the swing space. And I can assure you that if this fee were tripled, those going through this know the capacity wasn't there, know that we do need to build these this expertise through these firms and to get the swing space right. So I do want to say that we have learned a lot, and we know we need help, and we're going to pay for the best help, and that's what I see here. So I want to thank you and to remember why we're doing this. And Vice Chair Williams has said it, the $8 billion backlog, which is now down to a $7 billion backlog. These are these Cycle 1 schools, 60, 70, 80 years old, and we have a chance to get our children out of these schools quickly. And I can say we just in this, last week, we heard updates on a traditional project, William Wirt Middle. We've known about that project for 7 years. We've known about Hydesville Middle, Adelphi Middle, Walker Mill, Drew Freeman. Southern K through 8, Ken Moore for about 2 to 3 years, and the concrete is poured on those middle schools. They have caught up through this process. And this is working, and I just want to, just say my support of these two contracts. Thank you.
Board Member Mickens Murray.
Dr. Golson, you know, I'm not shy, and I was not going to say anything because I am pleased. I'm very pleased with the direction that you're going in and that you recognize the significance of having the right talent in place to be project managers over this new endeavor that you're undertaking, and it's huge. So I appreciate all of that. And the young man, I don't know your name. I will learn your name. But thank you. Thank you for providing the insight. So I just thank all of you because you're recognizing how important this is. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Board. And that's Mr. Washington. Vice Chair Williams.
I just wanted to give you an opportunity to give more information or define what gross maximum price is. What does that mean in this process so that all board members can know?
It's a not to exceed, is basically the term, and so the risk is on the advisor group. They have to fulfill the obligations that's set forth in the statement of work, and then the obligations set forth in our objectives that need to be met. And, it's not about the profit margin. When we need it and when we need to get it done, and this is the cap on the expenditure.
So what you're saying is you gave them an idea of what we would need to get there, and they base their price on that.
Yep.
If they exceed that number, based on the hours that they provide us, we don't pay beyond that.
Nope.
If they go below, we go below, and we have a little bit of gap money in our budget, because we're going to pay them what they extend.
What they bill and what they invoice, correct.
Yep. And thank you for providing the scope and the expected outcome. Maybe that should be a traditional provision that you do when we, introduce it. Because I think it's important that, I think the board members know because they've read the board action summary, but the public should hear that, what the scope might say. And what really struck me was how much you took from the first round that you included in this second round. In particular, what Board Member Boozer-Struther alluded to was the swing space. And also the fact that we know that anything that's not developed, any piece of land that's not developed in Prince George's County is probably a complicated piece of land. So the fact that you have someone who is going to be looking at those sites and taking that under consideration as we choose which schools we're going to put in this round, I think I'm glad that we have that added expertise. So the fact that we have the technical advisors helping us through this process and the financial advisors looking to ensure that we're using taxpayers' dollars to the best of our ability, it's going to make us, at the end of the day, us as board members, be able to do our job as we monitor you all in the implementation. So again, I appreciate the fact that because you're on board now, and thank you for taking this on, we have moved to this second round and we're better prepared. So thank you.
No further comment. We have a motion on the floor to approve the technical advisor contract for the Blueprint Schools Phase 2. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Abstentions? The motion carries with one opposition. And that was Board Member Ahmed, for the record. Oh, okay, Dr. Golson, next will be 5.8.
Item 5.8, requires board approval of the ACF Blueprint Schools Phase 2 financial advisor contract approval.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved and second to approve Blueprint Schools Phase 2 financial advisor contract. Any discussion? Any discussion or questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
One opposition,
Abstain.
one abstention. Who abstained? Board Member Harris abstained, and Board Member Ahmed voted nay. The motion carries. Thank you, board members, and thank you, Dr. Golson and team. Next, we will go to governance. These are second reader items. Dr. Golson, will you please introduce item 6.1?
Thank you. Item 6.1 requires board approval for a request to extend for 1 year the public charter agreements for Imagine Lincoln Public Charter and Imagine Foundations at Morningside Public Charter School.
May I have a motion?
Motion
So
to
moved.
approve.
It's been moved in second to approve the extension, to extend the public charter school agreements for Imagine Lincoln Public Charter School and Imagine Foundations at Morningside Public Charter School. Discussion, Board Member Harris.
Thank you for acknowledging me, Dr. Miller. Good evening, colleagues. I'm speaking in support of this agenda item tonight. During the last board meeting, I spoke about the experiences I've had with these two schools specifically seated in District 7. And I've also had some time to talk with several of you regarding your thoughts, concerns, and general overall excitement about their futures. So I'd like to once again urge each of you to support this request of a 1-year extension for Imagine Lincoln and Morningside as we continue to uniquely support all of our schools in Prince George's County. Thanks.
Board Member Ahmed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, last month when this proposal came before us, I asked about data for these schools. And what I had in mind was I was remembering the really abysmal data that was presented to the board during the prior charter renewal process for these schools. And so I did get, we all got a lot of data from the CEO, and I thank her for that. And I looked through it, and I looked through the course grades, the attendance rates, the absenteeism, other educational performance indicators, benchmark data, and some of it was okay, and some of it was not good. A lot of it was not good. All that to say that I understand the need and the concerns around COVID, and so I would be okay with supporting the 1-year extension with the understanding that there's going to be a more thorough analysis done during the renewal process with fine attention to academic indicators. I do know that there are very many charter providers here today. Y'all just please know that I cannot support a full charter renewal for a school with this level of academic underperformance for our kids. I can't do it. I don't think that's right for them. I don't think that's fair or right to us. But it seems like there may be enough support to move this renewal forward. So y'all got a year. Y'all got a year to be able to get it together for our kids and to continue the good things that you are doing, because I'm sure that there are very many good things. One of your Imagine schools is in my district, and I do know that there are a number of good things that are going on at that school. But I hope that you can spend this time to be able to uplift these other schools at Morningside and Lincoln to that level and that caliber that our students need, and that I know that, and I hope that you can serve out. So with that, I yield back, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Board Member Ahmed. Board Member Queen.
Thank you so very much, Madam Vice Chair. I just want to agree with my colleagues. I want to say to Board Member Harris, this school is in your district. The voters elected you to make sure you're responsible for the school in your district. So I'm glad, as you stated, that you actually took the time, did some investigation, and you really think that it's okay to approve. I am going to vote to support your decision, as the elected member by the people of your district to approve this, but I do agree with Board Member Mad. This is a charter school, and we have to expect better about charter schools. But I also agree with the charter school that we've been through COVID, and things have been different, not just for the charter school, but for us as a school system, for our students here in Prince George's County Public School. So I do understand at this point for extension, but I just think that you guys have to do better somehow. And we all have to do better somehow to make sure that this school gets up to par, because they're all of our students. They may be a charter school, but they're still our students. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Board Member Queen. Board Member Valentine?
Thank you, and I appreciate everything that's been said, particularly those who mentioned that charter schools are in the district, understanding that those students reside throughout the county. Just so those who know, they have charter school students in every district in the county. I guess we do have representatives from the Imagine here. I did have a question, and one in particular, how are they going to use the next year? And how they will use that time. I mean, those who are watching this meeting and are wondering about the comments that my colleague, Mr. Ahmed, just mentioned, right? I mean, there are people who support school choice and support parents having options on where to send their kids. There are folks who support autonomy, the ability that charter schools have to function, have a little more freedom in how they spend their money. But at the same time, in order for it to have trust in that, they have to have accountability, ensure that they're spending the taxpayer monies as outlined in their contract. And so for those representatives who are here, if someone could answer publicly how you would use the next year to ensure that you're addressing the comments of not only my colleague, Board Member Ahmed, but those constituents who are looking at this saying, we want to make sure that there is a level playing field for our schools.
Madam Board Chair, as the Vice Chair, as the Board Chair for Imagine Lincoln, I'm going to actually relinquish my questions to the operator, Imagine Lincoln, so they can give you all the answers that you may need.
Good evening. And so the question is, what are we going to do to sort of mitigate some of the issues a lot of things that we're going to do, I'll simply state it. But one of the things that we've done as a regional team is that we are now providing some of the on-the-ground support that I guess we haven't done the best job of doing. So in terms of making sure that everything that we do is student-centered. So like once a month, our team, we actually go to the school, we actually provide support, and we actually work with the school leaders in terms of working with the teachers and really looking at the data to push student achievement. That is our biggest focus. And then also just making sure that we are keeping our ear to the ground, including all of our constituents, the parent support, and actually being extremely resourceful as possible during this pandemic.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Recommendation, in my experience, parental engagement at public charter schools seems to be a little higher traditionally, just if you go to PTA meetings. I would just recommend you lean in on your parents and listen to what they have to say and partner with them, because parents chose those schools. They were informed when they chose them, and they're invested in making sure they stay open, but also they serve their children. So I would just only make the recommendation, but thank you for your comment.
Thank you, Board Member Valentine. Seeing no more comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? That motion passes. I will return the chair.
We'll now move to 9.0, motion to confirm actions taken in executive session. The motion and second to confirm the following actions in executive session were, for December 9th, 2021, are as follows. Discussion of personnel appointments, discussion to approve board office personnel appointments, to receive a report from the chief executive officer, to receive a report from internal audit and external audit. And I'd like to also inject that the board will be working together to select a chief of staff as we start the new year. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Point of order, was there a motion and a second?
Is there a comment?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, may I have a motion? It has been moved and second to confirm the actions taken in executive session. Any discussion or comments? Hearing none. All in favor? Opposed? The action, abstentions. The motion carries. Excuse me. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our last board meeting for the 2021 school year. For the 2021 year. Please, school will resume tomorrow. This is the last meeting for this Board of Education for the 2021 school year. We do have the subcommittee meetings, and our next board meeting is scheduled for January 13th, 2022. I extend to you on behalf of this board blessings for a delightful, safe, and joyous holiday.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn. Happy holidays.
Second.
So moved. The motion has been made and second to adjourn this meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned.